For 8 years, I had been in love. I wore a wedding dress and proposed to Chris. He frowned and told me to stop fooling around. I took off my veil, smiling through my tears. Chris, I'm 30 this year. It's time to get married. His response was silence. Everyone advised me that he was still building his career and that I should wait a bit longer. But I couldn't wait any longer. Later, at my wedding, Chris stumbled around to find me and asked me to go with him. I pushed him away. Chris, I'm married. That proposal a year ago was my final confession to him. I managed to be with Chris entirely because of my initiative. In college, I chased him for 3 years. Reserving seats, getting meals, buying study materials, I arranged everything for him. In the eyes of others, I was his most dedicated girlfriend. But only I knew how cold he always was. So cold it was almost inhuman, yet he didn't know how to refuse. As long as I had the nerve to ask, he would accept without expression. He probably didn't even know how I fell for him. The year we graduated, he found a job and I appeared at the right time to help him move. It was raining that day. To hold the umbrella for him, I got half of my body soaked. He suddenly stopped and looked at me. Let's be together. I grabbed his arm in surprise, asking 5 times, really? He grew impatient with my questions and coldly said, if you don't agree, I'll take it back. How could I not agree? This was the person I had chased for 3 years. The always dazzling person. The person brave enough to step forward in the face of danger. Others said he was a cold, top student. But in reality, he dared to fend off 5 attackers alone in a deserted alley, saving me from being assaulted. From that day on, I saw him through rose-colored glasses. In my heart, he was always the best Chris, or none. After we got together, life didn't change much. I lived at home, he lived in a rented apartment. Whenever I had free time, I would go clean and cook for him. When he was in graduate school, I was already working. So I bore most of the living expenses. He was actually quite reluctant, but since he paid for his tuition with loans, he didn't have extra money. I wrapped my arms around his neck and said, don't worry, when you make big money, you can take care of me. He turned his face away, awkwardly agreeing. I knew he didn't want to become a freeloader. But true love wouldn't let him suffer. Most of my salary went to him. I quietly bought him many things and couldn't bear to see him take a part-time job. He worked hard, earned his mentor's appreciation, and secured a job in advance. To establish himself in this city, he worked overtime when others didn't want to, and took on tasks when others refused. Within 5 years of graduating, he climbed from a small clerk to a department manager and moved into a bigger apartment. Finally, we could spend weekends together. He had slowly started to change. I was genuinely happy for him, having mentioned more than once that I wanted my parents to help with the down payment for a house preparing for marriage. But every time, he would say to wait a bit longer until he finished this project. My best friend said that dating for too long can make people tired of each other and that we should get married early. But I knew in my heart that our relationship had been plain and uneventful from the beginning. I was always the one initiating handholding. It was like being an old couple without passion, with no surprises at all. Even when I painstakingly arranged a birthday party for him, he just looked disinterested and said, don't waste money. The longer our days together, the clearer it became in my heart that he didn't love me. It was just that I happened to be the one who stuck around him the longest. On Chris's 30th birthday, I planned a proposal. Present were our closest friends. At first, I was a little excited, looking forward to seeing his reaction. From the moment I started planning, I kept it a secret from him. When he worked overtime, I stopped bringing him meals. When he went on business trips, I didn't make a special effort to pick him up. I thought that by doing this, he would feel unsettled, and seeing the surprise I prepared would make him happy. After the carefully crafted video played on the big screen in the private room, Chris's face was already grim. I forced myself to stay calm, walked towards him in the wedding dress I had prepared, and handed him the ring. Chris, will you marry me? Our friends started cheering, marry her, marry her. Chris frowned and said softly, Amy Johnson, stop it. He didn't speak loudly, but it was just when the music stopped, so everyone heard it. I took off the veil and apologized to everyone. Today's event ends here. Thank you all for helping. Chris didn't say another word from beginning to end. After sending off our friends, I returned to the private room. The birthday cake hadn't been cut yet. I lit the candles. Chris, make a wish. He glanced at me but didn't cooperate. I knew this was a sign of his displeasure. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Yes, someone who didn't love me from the beginning wouldn't be moved by a proposal. Actually, I had considered giving up the proposal today because, knowing his personality, I had already anticipated the outcome. But my best friend said if you don't try, you won't know if it might work. What if it succeeded? Thinking of my dad calling me to say that my mom had cancer, and her greatest wish was to see me get married before she died so someone could take care of me, I mustered up the courage to propose to Chris. Chris, I'm 30. I should get married. He remained silent.